Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to this land. Welcome to those of you in the gallery today and those of you that are joining us online, either through our Facebook page or the Council's live web stream page. Please note that tonight is a hybrid style meeting. We have two councillors that are dialing in online this evening, and it's being streamed obviously live to the audience. Streaming and recordings of the council meeting tonight are copyrighted and should not be altered, reproduced or republished without council's written permission or prior written permission. If we experience any technical difficulties, which we actually are with one councillor at the moment, we might pause the meeting for a quick adjournment to solve those issues, but we'll keep you updated. Now, I remind attendees that have joined us here in person this evening and those that are dialing in that any member of Parliament, any member of the public rather, that's addressing council must extend due courtesy and respect to council and the processes under which we operate here. And please take direction from me in the position as chair when told to do so this evening. Speakers, please remain respectful, and statements or questions should not be defamatory, offensive or objectionable in nature or aimed at embarrassing a member of council staff or a councillor themselves. We've got a full bench of councillors this evening, so I'll just quickly introduce our councillors from Lake Ward and online. Welcome to Councillor Copsey, welcome to Councillor Bond, and welcome to Councillor Sirikoff. From Gateway Ward, we have Councillor Consolo and Councillor Martin. And from Lake Ward, we have the Deputy Mayor Baxter, Councillor Clark online, and Councillor Crawford. So welcome, councillors. I'll now deal with the request to attend by electronic means. And councillors, we have received, I'll defer to the CEO actually. We've received two requests from councillors to dial into this evening's meeting. Could you provide us the details of those, please, CEO?
Through you, Mayor, we've received a request from Councillor Clark and also from Councillor Copsey.
And I see no issues with those requests, so I'll now move a motion that we accept the request to attend this meeting by electronic means, and it's been received by Councillor Clark and Councillor Copsey to do that. I move, look for a seconder, which is Councillor Consolo. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. I now move to item number 1 as we open the meeting, and there's no apologies that have been received. So let's now move to item number 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. So councillors, the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 6th of October have been circulated. Your questions of those minutes, please. There being none, I'm happy to move those minutes. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Martin, thank you. Are all those in favour of accepting the minutes? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's now move from item 2 now to item number 3, which is declarations of conflicts of interest. We have received one prior to the meeting for item 17.2. Councillor Clark. So, Councillor Clark, when we get to item 17.2, if you could give us the details of that conflict, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Public question time is item number 4 and submissions that have been received. We'll now hear from all the public comments on report items that have been received. Statements will be, actually we need to update that, but I'll call upon individuals that have submitted a question to council and also who wish to speak to certain items that we're considering at council this evening. I'll also adjust the agenda to tonight's meeting to ensure those of you that dialed in or join us here tonight, we hear those reports up front so you don't have to hang around until the end. So I call upon Lauren Sherson submitting a question to council. Lauren, welcome. State your name and your suburb, and your 3 minutes starts when you do, and I also acknowledge you as a candidate for the state election in Albert Park. So welcome to the City of Port Phillip. Thank you for coming. Get you to hit the grey button in front of you, and you'll just to turn the microphone on.
Lauren Sherson, Albert Park. What can the City of Port Phillip do to help our traders to attract and retain staff when constantly moving cars and parking fines are leading to staff turnovers?
That staff turnovers in the businesses, obviously, just to clarify there, Lauren.
The traders.
Good question. So good feedback. And I'll ask John Bartels to answer that question for us. John, are you online? Oh, he's here. There he is. Wow. Magically appeared. You heard the question, I take it, John? It hasn't altered from what was submitted, so go ahead. And I think that was a record time for a question there as well. It's like 8 seconds. Go.
Through you, Mayor. I'll probably start and take this in 2 parts. So, in terms of council support for traders, the economic impact associated with responding to the health challenges of COVID continue to impact our city in 21-22 financial year, along with the losses of income from visitors. Council has responded to this by rolling out more initiatives to support our local businesses and creative organisations, including events, outdoor dining and activation support, and have recently announced a major shopfront vacancy project in Carlisle Street. In the view of parking as a second part too, excuse me, is that consistent with Council's parking management policy, the available curb space is allocated to types of parking that best reflect the needs of the people in the specific street and area, so effectively a context-based approach. This includes a range of time-restricted parking to cater for different types of visitors and activities within activity centres, as well as other parts of our city. So, for instance, short-time parking for 15 minutes for pickups and takeaways, for instance, pickups and drop-offs as well around post offices, as well as short-term parking for grocery, shopping, coffee catch-ups, as well as longer-term car parking and storage for other users, including employees. Now, should there be concerns around the suitability of parking controls in specific locations, I'm really hoping and encourage, in terms of the members of the public, to communicate these through to Council, such that we can investigate these by Council officers and consider making changes in line with Council's parking management policy.
Thanks, Hugh. If I could just ask a deeper follow-up. When we do the surveys in terms of the rezoning of parking or feedback on parking, how much of an emphasis is put on commercial businesses? Patronage, yes, I get that, but also their requirements of staffing, etc. Obviously, we can't accommodate everybody, but do we address it?
Through you, Mayor, it probably depends on the various context. Noting there's different streets have different demands, so that's definitely taken into account, as well as the particular types of businesses that are present as well. So you effectively have, if you think about an activity centre, you have the activity centre or shopping strip. You have the peripheral area and interface then with the residential area, and then you have effectively the residential catchment that sits beyond that as well. So in that context, you kind of have to combine that with a variety of other factors, such as the type of businesses and land uses, to then kind of determine the best allocation, but also to test that with the community ultimately as well.
Thanks for your time, and thank you, Lauren. And more than happy to meet any of those traders that you think have issues as well with you. I now call upon Patrina Alexander submitting a question to Council. And Patrina, you join us online.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Welcome to the City of Port Phillip. Just get to state your name and your suburb, please.
Thank you. It's Patrina Alexander from the suburb of St Kilda Road.
Thank you.
And my question this evening is, what plans are in place for the next few months to improve post-COVID isolation and a feeling of disconnection, especially in the gateway community of St Kilda Road and Queen's Road?
Great question, and thank you for submitting it. I now call upon Felicity Leahy to talk. Alison, are you doing it? Go ahead, Alison.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for your question. Pleasingly, Council have been able to increase more opportunities and support a number of our community providers to connect people following COVID lockdown. So we're seeing an increase in activity. Council continue to run a diverse range of activity programs and events in line with Council's strategic plan, including connecting people to each other. Some of these activities, and I'm not 100% sure what you're interested in, but there's a very large and wide range of activities available. So everything from the Seniors Festival, holiday programs running in our libraries over the school holidays, and also rhyme time and story time happening on a regular basis. Community grant programs are also available to our diverse community groups to offer a range of activities that can connect people in different ways. Our sport and recreation clubs now are fully active and back up and running, and again this is an opportunity for people to participate in sport and recreation. Playgroups for our new parents and a number of other activities aimed at families and parents in the city of Port Phillip are also available. We have adventure playgrounds for young people where we continue to connect them to each other. We have an extensive library service and again a delivery service as well available for people who may not be able to leave their homes. We're running a range of activities through the Cultural Diversity Program and Refugee Week that's about to occur. And we also have a program around food security and building social cohesion about to happen in the inner metro region. So this is a small snapshot of some of the activities that council support and provide to our community. There is a detailed program available online if people want to see what activities are available. So we hope through this range of activities we'll continue to see people come back into public and shared spaces and enjoy the opportunity to connect with each other.
Thank you very much. I call upon Marjorie Main, speaking to item 7.1. Marjorie, welcome to the St Kilda Town Hall. Just get to state your name and your suburb when you get there. One more time, sorry, it was on. There we go, perfect, welcome.
Classic. I'm Marjorie and I'm from South Melbourne. So I want to speak today to the petition that I submitted recently to Council. It's regarding the dog park at Eastern Road Reserve North. So I just want to provide a bit of background, and this is going to be a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. I moved to South Melbourne in June 2021. And we began to visit the dog park at Eastern Road Reserve very regularly. We were immediately welcomed by the community there, and it's become an important part of my personal connection to community and also my dog's routine. Basically, the dog park just brings us a lot of joy. So being part of this community where we share these experiences is something that I'm really grateful for and proud of. With that said, it's a simple fact, really, that the current state of the dog park leaves a lot to be desired. In August 2021, I began this petition. We've now got over 400 signatures from members of the community appealing to the council to put some resources into improving this park in consultation with the community and the users. I've now also created a survey, which we've got 60 respondents to in the last 2 weeks, with quite a lot of detailed feedback to sort of start this consultation proactively. So many survey respondents have provided very specific reasons for why they use the park, but basically it meets a lot of diverse needs in the community. We live in an inner city area with a high proportion of people in apartment living situations. The traffic and the crowds of the area mean people seek a safe space to exercise their animals, and this search brings them to the dog park. Some people have access or mobility limitations, and the park is their safest option to exercise their dogs. Others are concerned about training puppies, others have deaf dogs, others have older dogs, some are concerned about wildlife if their dogs are off leash. So this fully fenced area is the only safe zone in the region. I feel a bit funny talking about this before we've addressed the petition, but I guess you're all aware of it anyway. So there are two main things that we are seeking to be improved. The first is the security. The park is the only fully fenced one in the council. I think there's now, or will soon be, a second one in Elstonwick, which is amazing, but very far away from South Melbourne. So the fencing is is not in an ideal condition. Just this afternoon, one of the gates failed to latch. The fence is like those bars that are around child-safe, like pools, so dogs can actually fit through the fence, which is not great. I've personally seen like a Pomeranian run out through the bars of the fence into traffic, and last year, when the gate didn't shut properly, a whippet ran out and was killed. So I'm aware that there have been checks on the fence, and, you know, it mostly seems suitable, like it's sturdy, you shake it and it doesn't break, but it's actually not fit for purpose. The second issue would be the resurfacing. Sorry, I know I'm taking...
No, that's right. You're a bit over, but I'm being liberal tonight.
Thank you. So the second issue is the surfacing. The general condition of the park is not great, and we would appreciate it if you consulted with the community when arriving at a decision about redesigning and resurfacing, because the community has got a lot of great ideas and sort of creative solutions and strong preferences that I can show you more about in the survey.
That's okay. So just whilst you're here, if I ask you a quick question. So you've read that there's a recommendation so we've considered the petition. There's a recommendation here, which is to do exactly that and to go out consult. Could you give us feedback on what your views are on the proposed surface for the reserve in terms of the, how do I pronounce it? The granitic sand?
Granite sand, yeah. So there's another park in the CBD that has granite sand, and it's a very small area, very, very high traffic.
Where's that?
It's new. It's like, it's just off City Road.
Oh, it's the one under the Kingsway Bridge?
Yeah, the tiny little one.
Right.
And so it's only been active for, you know, I think under a year now. And the gravel does need maintenance. So it does have like an ongoing, like, it degrades pretty quickly, the quality of that as well. In the survey, there's like over 60 people so far, and I think 57 people said that they would prefer grass, and 41% of people said that they would prefer a combination of gravel and grass.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's useful information. That helps inform us here. And one last question too. You're right next to Albert Park Reserve there. So you say there's nothing necessarily close by. There's a huge off-leash dog area in Albert Park Reserve. Why is that not necessarily appropriate compared to this one for your personal?
Well, it's near some very busy roads. You've also got bicycles. You've got multi-use pedestrian paths. So you've got cyclists and runners and things. So dogs interrupting the flow of, you know, commuters on bikes is an issue, and then also the traffic. While everyone controls their dogs as best they can, there are sometimes circumstances. In the same way a child might step out onto the street, an adult might step out onto the street, a dog might step out onto the street. The fence is really providing peace of mind. Also, personally, there are like swans and there's a lot of like birds nearby. So there's an area, like it's across a pedestrian path. One side is a native bird reserved area, and the other side is an off-leash dog area. But to me, that line is not really delineated reliably enough for, you know, dogs to resist chasing birds.
Appreciate that. Thank you for answering my questions, and thank you for coming again this evening. We appreciate it. Oh, you got another one.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Now, I'm trying to find with the fence, I understand what you're saying, that between the slats is the dogs are getting out. But I was there today and I'm observing that at the gates, specifically on Eastern Road is one I'm remembering, that there's been some metal put down a little bit. Was that an area maybe when you started the petition that piece might not have been there and dogs were getting under the fence more readily? Have you seen changes in the year to the fencing?
No. The one gate falls off its hinges and the people who take away the bins have fixed it. But I have seen that like little addition to one of the gates to stop things fitting underneath. But I've never seen a dog go underneath the entrances.
So it wasn't that, it was through the slat?
It's yeah. You know, a child-safe pool fence, the slats are maybe like 10 centimetres apart or something like that. I don't quite know. I should have measured them. Yeah, dogs fit through.
I did measure. Yeah, it's 8 centimetres between them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, dogs are quite small. The standard for pool fences and other openings is usually 10 centimetres.
Yeah.
So it is probably...
It's a bit smaller then. Yeah.
Yeah, but dogs are small compared to human heads.
Yeah, I think the best solution in terms of fencing would be something that's like a chain link fence. So that it like has some it's softer on impact and also just really small. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for putting up with our interrogation. I appreciate it. I now call upon Georgina Tosselidis, speaking to item 9.1, which is the Multicultural Advisory Committee Annual Report. Hey, welcome. How are you?
Good, thank you. Georgina Tosselidis from Elwood. And I wish I'd known you were in a Liberal frame of mind tonight. I would have written a bit more.
Always in the Liberal frame of mind. Well, that's debatable, actually, but anyway, let's not go there.
I'd like to acknowledge the participation, firstly, of Councillor Tim Baxter, Deputy Mayor, who is the council rep on our committee. I'd also like to thank the members of the committee for their ongoing support and work. The committee is made up of individuals whose combined expertise, experience and connections to our diverse community add something vital to the work of the council. Lastly, I wish to thank the people who support the work of the committee, in particular Sandra Kazam and Leo Kelly. I'll highlight some of our achievements in 2021 and recommend the report to you where we supply more detail. We deliberated long and hard on recommending to Council that it join the Welcoming Cities network. My colleague, Hélène Camoon, who's the Deputy Chair, will speak to this in more detail. The MAC is tasked with providing advice to Council, and we do this with great enthusiasm, as I'm sure those who speak with us will attest to. We have provided advice on numerous Council plans and strategies, and these are detailed in our submission as well. The perspectives members bring to this task are possibly unique, given we connect with diverse communities whose voices often remain unheard. The importance of our role linking Council to minority communities became evident during COVID, when some communities were disproportionately affected. Our achievements included culturally appropriate information sessions on COVID, both face-to-face and online, support for called women facing social isolation in Park Towers, developing a multifaceted approach to tackling vaccine hesitancy, advocacy on related mental health issues within minority communities, assisting with digital literacy at a time when this was so important, assisting with the coordination of programs for economic and social recovery. Behind some of these initiatives were successful funding applications, which meant that these were cost neutral to Council, an achievement in itself. One of our priorities is tackling racism. Its rise during COVID reminds us that it's always there, even if it's sometimes latent. Our approach is to showcase diversity towards inclusion. We did this by advocating for Council to join All One Together, supporting communities and their members who experience racism, making difference familiar to the wider community through migrant stories, some are featured on the website, inviting the wider community to remember and celebrate with us through Diversity Week, Refugee Week and more recently welcoming events, and keeping abreast of research relevant to our city. Communication with those who may not be confident with English remains a priority. This is imperative if we are to have an inclusive community. We advocate for Council to develop a coherent and consistent communication strategy that allows all members of our community to know what's going on and have an opportunity to provide input into Council decision-making. We are also concerned that Council services are responsive to cultural difference in genuine ways, including through inclusive employment practices. We ran some information sessions for members of minorities on work-related issues because many of them face additional hardships. Lastly, I would like to state that the MAC champions intersectionality. We know through our own personal experiences that being a member of one minority does not exclude you from being a member of another group that experiences prejudice or racism. However, I would like to argue that intersections are also powerful places because they represent a coming together. And in this spirit, I look forward to building closer relationships with other council advisory committees towards building consistent and compatible frameworks and advocacy. I'll leave it there and hand over to Ellen Camoon, who's the Deputy Chair of the MAC, who's online, I believe. Thank you.
And thank you for doing my job for me. Can you hear us online? That's all right. We're just unmuting now.
Oh, yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Just get you to state your name and your suburb, and your 3 minutes starts when you do.
So, Ellen Cameron, living in Elwood. Thanks a lot, Georgina, for setting the scene. And I would also like to start by thanking the Council for the opportunity to talk to our MAC annual report. So, as Georgina just mentioned, our committee has assumed an important role to support Council in the inclusion of multicultural communities throughout the city. And this is particularly important given the high proportion of residents born overseas when comparing City of Port Phillip with the Victorian average. And it has also been critical over the last couple of years and dealing with the COVID crisis. This year, we made a recommendation to Council for the City of Port Phillip to join the Welcoming Cities Network. We were very pleased that this recommendation was adopted almost unanimously by our councillors. We have informally used the Welcoming City Standard as a framework for our goals and decisions over the last 2 years, and it has proven a great tool to indicate, the best direction for what we're trying to achieve through the committee. So with City of Port Phillip officially joining the Welcoming Cities Network, we can formalize our adoption of this framework for our committee and also hope this will pave the way towards an even more inclusive city for everyone to feel they belong in the City of Port Phillip. As Georgina mentioned, we recently celebrated City of Port Phillip joining the network at an event on Chapel Street celebrating the diversity in our city. But in addition to fostering community building events, joining the network is an opportunity for City of Port Phillip to benchmark their cultural diversity, inclusion policies and practices and identify, with the support of our committee, where and how further efforts could be directed. This is an opportunity for City of Port Phillip to lead the way in the inclusion of communities in all of their diversities and stay a city where everyone arriving in Australia wants to settle. This Welcoming City Standard mentions 6 categories of activities that are leadership, social and cultural inclusion, economic development, learning and skills development, civic development, places and spaces. We have aligned our action plan against these categories alongside the Council plan directions, and we look forward to progressing activities in this space with the Council and the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both for your service. It will be acknowledged, obviously, when we get to the report. You can ask a question of Helen.
Thank you, Mel. Look, since Georgina's here, it might be easy to ask her.
Yeah, great. Georgina, feel free to take a seat.
Firstly, can I congratulate you and the rest of MAC on that report, and to Councillor Baxter for supporting you. I also know that you're a member of OPAC, which I'm involved with. You mentioned intersectionality as being really, really important, particularly in getting our various advisory committees to work even more closely together than they do. Is there any advice you can give us as councillors to how we can facilitate this?
Yes, I think both OPAC and MAC have already initiated a desire, or we're planning, I should say, a get-together for the advisory committees. I think it's really important that the advisory committees come together in some coherent form, and I was really... the MAC had a meeting at the Pride Centre last week. We held our meeting there and had a tour. And one of the members of that committee put forward their own agenda and action plan. And it was really, really interesting because we could have taken out several terms and replaced them with terms that we're interested in, like called or ethnic minority, and it would have been just as relevant to us. So it's just one example, but I think there's a lot of things. And I think it also stops a silo mentality, like we've got Seniors Week in the multicultural area, and then we've got Seniors Week in the non-multicultural area. So there's obviously scope for unified work.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I now call upon, and
Yep.
thank you, please take a seat. I now call upon Andrew Perkins, who's speaking to item 10.2, Kerferd Road Safety Trial Update. Andrew, welcome to the City of Port Phillip. Just get to state your name and your suburb. Take a seat.
It's Albert Park.
Great, just get you to take a seat.
Can I stand?
You can. Could you do me a favour? If the officers just move the microphone over.
Oh, that's okay.
That's right.
Yeah, ratepayer of 26.
You got two lights in front of you?
I have.
Yep, that's right. Go ahead.
I'll see if I can project myself anyway.
And I'll just get you to state your name and suburb again, and we're good to go.
Andrew Perkins, Albert Park.
No worries. And you just 3
Ratepayer
minutes
of
on
some 30 years plus.
Great. Just because you came in late, we allocate 3 minutes, but we're being a bit liberal tonight, so go ahead.
See if I can keep it within that. Yes, I've been involved with the closure of Montague and Kerferd Road. It was initially to be a 6-month trial. As a ratepayer, I'm very unimpressed that Mr Mason et al. Hasn't got the professionalism or...
Just get you to stop there.
Yeah, to contact me.
I know you came in late before we said it, but we don't generally like specific references to officers, and particularly regarding professionalism, etc. Very happy to have a chat to you about that.
Well, hang on, I pay the
in a
bills.
Public council meeting.
I pay the bills, I'm sure. It happens in every other forum.
So I ask you to speak respectfully, and I'm giving you a warning. If you don't wish to heed that warning, I'll ask you to stop. So I'll get you to rephrase your comments.
It's okay. So I was instrumental in arranging the... Anyway, I'm surprised I haven't been advised what is happening at all, which is quite extraordinary. And, you know, we made a huge effort and put the alternative view of over 220 people who didn't want it closed, a diverse group, as opposed to the 19 that happened to be in Harold Street, in and around Harold Street. And it seems to be sort of overlooked that by just on a bare majority, there was about 201 people that didn't want it. Now, that's the history. The issue then is some of the conclusions are laughable. If you close an intersection, of course it's going to reduce the level of accidents. There were no accidents in the 10 years preceding. I noticed they say there was one within the last 5, but there are none. Secondly, everyone can get a report that will tell you something about why it's dangerous, but why that intersection and not the rest of the intersections? They're all the same. In fact, now that you have to pull up at the next intersection, there's runners of risk that people can run in the back of you. So we're not opposed to some amendment. It's possibly dangerous. I mean, the trees are in the way for a start, but that's probably too far a vision. But the intersection can be dealt with in an intelligent, non-confrontational offline. It doesn't need to be closed. So we're kicking the can along the road. We said 6-month trial from February 2020. So we're now 30 months down. We're going to kick the road again because we're going to have the alleged shrine to sea. So this keeps going down the road. So sooner or later, the other thing I think I would ask that I could review as a ratepayer the conclusions of the statistics and analysis of how you come to the conclusion that it's a net improvement. It's always going to be a net improvement if the road's closed. It's ridiculous. It's a tautologous answer.
Great, thank you. We'll make sure those questions are raised when we get to the item. We're going to change the agenda to bring the item up earlier, and we do appreciate you coming to this evening, Andrew. Thanks
for your time.
I now call upon Joe Plummer speaking to item 13.5, which is the South Melbourne Market Annual Report, and Joe joins us online.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to just very briefly present the annual report.
Just get you to state your name and suburb, please, Joe.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joe Plummer and I live in Southbank.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you for the opportunity to present the South Melbourne Market Annual Plan. Again, it has been a year of some significant challenges, but certainly some incredible achievements, not least of all being able to uphold the very strong reputation in the local community, the wider Melbourne area, and of course as a top tourist destination. In doing so, I really want to recognise the dedicated and resilient market management team and my fellow committee members who've worked incredibly hard to support our traders, lead a remarkable post-COVID recovery plan, and of course deliver an incredible visitor experience as well. A couple of quick highlights. We welcomed some very exciting new businesses. We've received exceptional community satisfaction results with 97% rating the market offer as very good or excellent and a net promoter score of 75.5. Over 74% of waste has been diverted from landfill. And of course, we've had some excellent investment both from COP and government to help us with some terrific infrastructure improvements as well. We have become an official retail partner of the Australian Made brand, which is very exciting, along with some other terrific collaborations and partnerships, not least of all Craft Victoria, Museum of Play and Art and the Business of Food. Last of all, but not least, some terrific work and some draft concepts that have been progressed with our next project to really put the market to be future-proofing that into the years to come. So it's a great pleasure and a delight to present the annual plan to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you also, Jo, for your service to the council. We greatly appreciate it. Councillors, let's now move from item 4 to item 5, which is your time to shine. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers under item number 5? Great. Let's now move to item number 6, and I note that we have no items for the sealing at tonight's meeting, and that brings us to item number 7, of which we have one item in terms of a petition, which is item 7.1, which is a petition relating to the dog park upgrade at Eastern Road Reserve. Councillors, I now invite you to provide questions to the officers. Councillor Consolo.
I have a few questions. Could we consider something of a smaller opening size, such as chicken wire and netting, applied to the existing fence? I'm referring to like a sturdy material that's of a lower investment than replacing it with a different type of fence, because we have that current review underway where larger investments might be considered in context.
Alison, do I go to you or Dana? Okay, Alison Kenwood.
Through you, Mayor. We can certainly consider that as part of the review that we'll be doing in terms of ongoing standards that we'll be putting in place for future dog parks as part of the dog off-leash guidelines that we're developing, which would include looking at Eastern Reserve North as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Consolo.
Are the gates checked regularly as part of the maintenance of the asset? I imagine they were checked during the audit, but is it ongoing when someone comes to tend to the grounds that they would check the gates and ensure that they're working properly?
Alison Kenwood.
Through you, Mayor, yes, the gates are regularly checked, as the fences are, and the condition of the park overall is regularly checked as part of our maintenance schedule.
Go ahead, Councillor Consolo.
Last one. What is the time frame people can expect for the community consultation and work should this be passed tonight?
Through you, Mayor, we can move very quickly if the motion's passed tonight. In the next 4 weeks, we would be hoping to start detailed consultation with community.
And if I may ask a question, is the surface that's being proposed, obviously it's not I presume it's not a widely used recreation surface in our city in any case. What's the maintenance experience with that surface given the level of use that park's getting at the moment?
Through you, Mayor, we've talked to other councils that are using it quite widely. Correct, it's not used widely in our municipality, but it is in the northern suburbs with specific to dog park areas. It does require good maintenance, particularly if it's a high-use area. Again, if it's passed and we do use this product for the surface, we'll need to have a good maintenance schedule to make sure it's maintained. It does move around. And again, it would need to be, a maintenance schedule would need to be set in line with the use of the park, which is very heavily used.
If the motion does pass, I'm sure councillors would be interested to understand the maintenance regime required for it. Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also interested in not only the new surface that might be installed in the area, but just the general maintenance of any vegetation that will be going in to make it an attractive and a respectable area where dog owners would see that this is a place where it's not to be overrun or misused.
So through you, Mayor, part of this proposal is also to look at greening and also look at if we can add some additional greening to help screen off some of the adjacent properties. So as part of this, we'll look at the surfacing, again, for accessibility, and we'll also look at improving where the greening is and how it's used. And in addition to that, we'll also be looking at putting in some play things for animals, for dogs as well.
Councillor Clark.
Yes, I was just wondering what the estimated cost of the maintenance is of this type of surface.
I'd have to take, sorry, through you, Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice. Again, it would depend on, we would talk to other municipalities that are using it and, again, get a guide on the usage. I think a lot of the maintenance is based on how heavily used parks are because the sand does move around. So we have good numbers and a good estimate of the number of dogs that are using the park currently. So, and we can see from the petition it's heavily valued and used. So we would talk to other municipalities that are using this product at the moment and get a guide on how regularly they're having to maintain it.
Ms. CEO, would you like to add to that, or are you okay? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I think the challenge is with the grass surface. It is if we were to try and maintain the grass surface in a standard that would be fit for use year-round, be exceptionally expensive, and it's not very durable. So as you know, when we move into winter, when the sun's not out, grass doesn't grow. When it's wet, grass doesn't grow or gets overtrodden and muddy. So the current surface, maintaining it as grass, is going to be exceptionally difficult to maintain it to a standard that people want year-round. There is additional expenses associated with maintaining the granitic sand, but it would be nowhere near as expensive as continuing to try and maintain it as a grass surface year-round.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Crawford.
I'm trying to figure out how to make this into a question. I guess my concern is it actually possible to maintain a highly utilised fenced-off dog park to a certain standard and maybe, I mean, I guess that's the question, and although we would do certain maintenance, there is only a certain amount that can be done. Is that the reality that we're facing? Obviously do our best, but there's a reality.
Alison Kenwood.
So through you, Mayor, again, I think our experience talking to other municipalities is this product can be used very successfully, and to the point that the CEO has made around the current grass, mud and dirt and the maintenance again of that, and particularly for dogs walking and then walking home and into properties, I think it's the proposal around granitic sand is a much better option, and we would need to look at ways that we could minimise maintenance and how we could keep the product in the actual park area. So again, if this is passed, we will spend some time in other municipalities that use this very widely, particularly in Brunswick and areas like that where, again, it's been very successful.
Great, thank you. Interim CEO, please.
Just to add to that, Chair, when looking, as the team are working on the guidelines as well, they are looking at what would be the right kind of criteria for a park in the future in terms of being more sustainable. And I think this one in particular has challenges around some of the natural overshadowing with trees, which means once it gets shady again, the grass won't grow. So sometimes it's about the context of the specific area. This one itself doesn't lend itself very well. Plus, it's got very high usage, which is reflective of the need in the community, and a relatively small surface area. So again, it doesn't give a chance for the grass to recoup. So there is opportunities potentially at other dog parks in other areas which are larger, maybe not as heavily utilised, which have better natural features to support grass. But in this particular case, our conclusion is that trying to make this a grass facility year-round is going to be very expensive and probably not very effective.
Okay, councillors, I think we're winding up. We've got an officer's recommendation in response to the petition. Would any councillor wish to move this recommendation or something else? Councillor Crawford got in first and then Councillor Martin the second. Councillor Crawford? That's all right. Councillor Crawford. I think my eyes tricked me there, so I'll try again. Would anyone like to move this or something else? Councillor Martin, what would you like to do?
I'd like to move an alternative recommendation to the officer's recommendation, which I hope is going to go up on the screen.
Go ahead.
and once it's there, it notes that there will be 2 additional clauses added in. A new clause 5 that says, noting these concerns, the operating hours of Eastern Reserve North Dog Park and their enforcement will be considered as part of the dog off-leash guideline development. Then the numbers of the various points change, and there will be a new point 7. And there's a typo. We need to change the spelling of one of the words there. Request that the CEO reviews the regular maintenance schedule and ensures that it is adequate for the high usage of the park.
Great. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Sirikoff. Second. Councillor Martin, I'll get you to speak to your item.
I've been dealing with tensions between dog owners and those people who perhaps don't own dogs for many years in a variety of roles. And the officers' rec, as it stands, I don't believe fully takes into account the concerns of some of the people who live near Eastern Road with some of the way that the park is being accessed. Having said that, I'm very supportive of the proposal that we introduce a off-leash park for the local residents. So, firstly, I note that we're thanking the petitioners for their petition. I also thank all those people who've emailed me with arguments, and other councillors with both arguments for and against this proposal. And we've had a look at these proposals. I'm trying to hear, with my alternative recommendation, try and strike a balance between 2 very, very passionate groups. So there's another. So as well as there being tensions between dog owners and those people who don't own dogs, there's also tension between those people who love grass and trying to maintain a grass park in an area that's high usage. And I speak on my own experience at a school not so long ago. The school numbers went from 120 to 850. While the numbers were small, we had a brilliant oval, but having to replace the grass every 12 months because the number of children were trampling the grass into the ground, we ended up finding a very porous synthetic surface, which was not as good as the grass, but nearly as good as the grass, much cheaper to maintain and safer for the children. So we're looking at the same thing here. We're looking at a surface where if we can't maintain the grass at a suitable level, and we'd be rolling out new turf, I would suggest at least once every 3 months, and even that probably wouldn't be satisfactory. We've come up with a surface which I believe is going to be very effective long term. It's porous, it's going to drain, it's going to be easy to maintain, and we will have to maintain it. And at the same time, it'll still be a reasonable service for those people who aren't dog owners who want to access that park. So that's to do with the surface. With my other comments there, given that there are significant concerns from local residents about the hours of usage of the park, I'd like any consultation process to look at how we're going to provide guidance to the dog owners and other local residents about the hours that the park is used, the sort of signage that would be necessary. I note at the Peanut Farm Reserve, which is used as a dog park, the lights go out at a particular time every night and the place is plunged into darkness, which is quite a good signal to people that it's probably time to go home. On the other hand, we need to work out we need to work out what time is appropriate, because I know that there are people who work and don't get home till 7 o'clock at night in darkness and like to be able to walk their dogs. So I'd love the consultation process to take the views of both the dog owners and the other local residents into account, so we can try and come up with something which addresses the concerns of both groups. We're noting in one of the points that we're not just looking at the North Eastern Road Dog Park, but we're also looking at the council investigating the development of other off-leash dog parks throughout the municipality, with Moran Reserve about to open, and I think that's a fantastic thing, and obviously there'll be lots of work going on to do that. And finally, last but not least, as Councillor Sirikoff has mentioned earlier, if we simply install a new surface in the dog park, fix up the fence and walk away and come back in 6 months' time, it's probably not going to be in the same state that we left it. So, and given that we haven't had a granitic sand surface to maintain before, we're going to need to make sure that we have appropriate guidelines for whoever the council contractor is, not just in maintaining the surface, but in maintaining whatever other. And I'm hoping there's going to be lots of green plantings in that park to break up the granite surface, to maintain the fencing in an appropriate way has been alluded to, making sure that the gates are working properly. Hence the reason for these 2 additional dot points that I've got in there. So hopefully, councillors, you'll support the alternative recommendation, which I believe is taking a better account of the views of all of the local residents than the original officers' rec.
Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. what's happened during this COVID period is that we've had a huge growth in the number of registered dogs, some 8,800 dogs, and this is impacting City of Port Phillip from one end to the other, and notably in the North-Eastern Reserve, especially given that it's a fenced-off area, so it's a very popular place to go to. This has brought upon it two impacts, one being the obviously the number of dogs and the overuse of the grounds, and to the point where the grassed area is no longer grass, and it really needs to have some kind of maintenance to keep it into a respectful and an attractive place to go to. The other issue is also the amount of noise or barking from the dogs. So the impact is on the amenity of the neighbouring area. So I'm just hoping that really through this motion we can bring to light respect by the dog owners when they do bring their family dog members to the park, that they're respectful to the neighbouring area and how it's impacting on those people who live literally across the road and will be listening to the barking of dogs day in, day out, no different to what you might hear people who get very upset when they hear hooning on their streets, usually during the summer months, and they get very upset about that, and we've had to try to deal with that over the past 12 months. So in the same way, hooning will only last for an evening, but dogs will be barking day in, day out. So getting back to this amendment, though, is the keep. I'm hoping that we can find ways of maintaining these grounds so that at least the visual impact for the neighbouring area is pleasant to look upon. As there have been, I've received a number of concerns from a number of residents that the general maintenance of the park could be highly improved. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sirikoff. Councillor Copsey.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this evening. Just noting that I am not convinced that the granitic sand option is actually what's being sought by the community here. And given the price tag on that option, I think actually my preference would be to continue with minimal maintenance schedule, which is the other option that's canvassed in the report. Until we've had a bit more of a think about what the longer term outcome would be. I suspect if some community members understood the difficulties with maintaining a solid turf at this location and said, so, in that situation, would you prefer it to remain imperfect turf or be converted to sand, we might get a slightly different response from community. So just based on that, and also knowing that there is a high demand for other facilities to exercise dogs within, different portions of this neighbourhood. With that kind of price tag, I think that I would prefer to consider other options around whether we can extend dog facilities rather than put it all into this park. That said, I expect if this motion passes tonight, there will still be time to have those sorts of conversations. So I'm not terribly concerned about which direction we go in this evening, but just I don't want to give the signal that I think we should go full steam ahead on the granitic sand option. Should this motion fail, I'll move the officer's recommendation with the simple maintain option that's canvassed in the report tonight. And I think overall, we can also continue to consider what happens at Eastern Reserve as part of the ongoing review that's being undertaken.
Thanks, Councillor Copsey, and we take that foreshadow. Deputy Mayor Baxter.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we just go back to the first page with the first...
Yep, go for it.
I'm just... this is more of a technical question, but I believe there might be a typo or a missed word there, considered as part of the dog-off guideline development.
Good pick.
The word leash is probably missing there.
And I presume the mover and the seconder are fine with the small amendment there that Deputy Mayor Baxter is proposing, which is a good one.
Literally,
did you want to
I had
speak
to say
to that
I was
as well?
being anal, sorry.
No, that's pretty fundamental, I would suggest. We don't want any dog-offs occurring in our city. Councillor Bond.
I was on council when this fence was put up. I think it was 2014, or around that time anyway. This was another one. We've got a number of them across our city, but this park was probably highly underutilised at that particular point in time. We put up a fence for dogs, and I know a number of neighbours who lived in that area were not happy, and that number was probably around 10. And I know 400 or 500 people were absolutely thrilled that we turned this into an off-lead fenced dog area. They, came to council with petitions back then. They had their own Facebook group, and they basically became a little community in that area. And it sounds like that little community is still going. And I'm sure some people have moved on, but others have probably been there the entire 8 or 9 years through this process. I think the solution here is, I understand if you are a resident, this park is probably overutilised, and it's probably a bit of a shame it's taken council another 8 years from when we fenced this one do we get our next fenced off lead dog park, which is opening, it was end of October, but I believe it's now been pushed back a couple of weeks, early November, so we'll have a second one. And we probably should, as a council, have, and hopefully it's part of the off-leash guideline review, is that we look at other underutilised pieces of space in our city that we can fence off and make these areas dedicated dog off-lead areas and take a bit of pressure off this reserve. And I can think of a site on Howe Crescent opposite Park Towers. I can think of a site beside the tram tracks in Port Melbourne. The triangle down in Elwood between Barclay and Marine Parade. There's all these areas that you drive around. They're beautiful looking parks, but you would rarely see someone in them other than who's not walking a dog. So there's plenty of opportunities for us as a council to look at what we do with these underutilised spaces and see if we can satisfy the needs of our dog owners in our city and take a bit of pressure off the currently one and soon to be 2 dog parks we do have by having a few more across the city to cater for this growth in dogs we've seen. So in terms of the operating hours, I probably won't be supporting that when it comes back, but happy to see what the recommendation is. I know a lot of people do work shift hours. A lot of people, get home from work and want to walk their dogs late at night or finish work late at night or have to start work at 7 in the morning and have to walk the dog before they get ready and start work. All that sort of stuff occurs. So I'm probably not going to favour any restrictions on operating hours here, but certainly will favour council exploring and finding more dog off-lead areas that we can implement across our city. So we'll be supporting this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bond. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor. It does seem a little bit like we're making some decisions ahead of the review. We are embarking on a comprehensive review of the dog leash guidelines. And I note Councillor Copsey's comments and that we are consulting, but also we're being asked to spend a significant amount of money choosing the granitic sands that we're not quite sure of the maintenance and we're not quite sure of the management of it yet. And based on what the petitioner said, I'm not sure that that's the solution they want. However, with the challenges of grass, it may end up being the only solution, but there could be others that are explored as part of this dog leash program or review that we're doing. So I think we need to do those reviews before we commit to spending $140,000 plus maintenance costs that we're not that we haven't fully determined yet as well. So I'm supportive of the intent of what we're trying to do here, but I think it's putting the horse before the cart a little bit, and I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Who else would like to speak to the item? Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
I'm having one of those moments where there are elements I want to support and elements I do not want to support. So the challenge for me is around expectation and the challenges facing the community. So I guess to going out to consultation, and I do hope that the wider consultation on our dog off-leash and parks just for dog usage generally really addresses the challenge that we face as a council and makes the community aware, because we have very limited space and we've got a hell of a lot more dogs in the municipality than we did 2 years ago. And part of the challenge is that most owners do the right thing, but not all owners do the right thing. And I think Councillor Consolo, you said it brilliantly the other day, that everyone goes, my dog doesn't cause any damage to parks or whatever, but when 10,000 owners of dogs have, it makes the surfaces almost impossible to maintain to any level. So, and we can't endlessly keep necessarily have. The grass might be a nice to have and a granitic soil in certain locations. Granitic sand may be the option. So we are going to do that deep piece of work, which I note was not fully supported last year, but it has come to light that it was actually a very prescient piece of a decision we made given the increase in dogs in the municipality. So I'm still going to, I don't know which way I'll vote. I mean, I guess either way, we're still doing the deep dive into this whole concept for more opportunity for dogs to have off-leash spaces. But I am not very supportive about enforcing operating hours. It's a park, it's open. By putting those in place, it gives the expectation that we would be able to enforce it, and we wouldn't. There would be no officers there stopping dogs going in at any time. I just think that kind of thing is unrealistic. So I'm really not supportive of that element. I understand them. I think we should maintain it. But at some point, perhaps there is only a level of maintenance when something is that highly utilised that we can reach, and that needs to be accepted as well. As well as those small percentage of dog owners who also don't do the right things by their dogs or the other dogs that they're interacting with. So, as I said, I'm not sure which way I'm going to vote. Overall, I'm supportive of the concept of more dog places, but not sure about everything in this particular motion or alternate motion.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Consolo.
Thank you. As I said, I was there today with the dog. I'm dog sitting, and we had a great time. It's a great asset that we have in the area. I do note that there are people's concerns that live in the area, and that's as well respected. In the views tonight, I know we have a process underway, so I'm sort of sitting in the middle of saying, well, first of all, the grass was in really good condition at one end of it, and it's a shame to get rid of great grass when we're having a bumper season of rain and the weather's on our side for the next few months. I'd rather not rip it out at the moment, but I can see at the other end along Park Street is quite that grass is not there, and it needs a solution. The pavers around some paths, it looks very tired, they're uneven, and if they were removed and granitic sand was used in kind of that half, it'd be a good update. There could be another bin at the third gate. There could be just a little bit of uplift that would really improve the state of the park. The fence at this time is hard because we're in the process of reviewing the dogs off-leash guidelines to put in a big investment. You want to do it right, and so maybe if the fence is intact in all areas as it looked in my inspection today, that might be something we have to wait on, or maybe the chicken wire, something like that would be an intermediate solution. I fully support this going to community consultation with the topic of granitic sand. Possibly with it would only be half would be an outcome for at least this season, because that process of what we're doing right now with the dogs off leash, yes, it goes through winter where we're going to see a deterioration in the grass, but at least it allows it to last until we have to, maybe it wouldn't be cost effective doing 2 goes, but that's something to be considered. But I support it going tonight to community consultation. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Consolo. Councillor, is there anyone else wish to speak to the item? Councillor Martin, I invite you to close.
I know a number of my council colleagues have said, well, they're not quite sure about this. They'd like to sit on the fence. There are some good points here. There are a couple of things they're worried about. This is all about going to consultation. I'd love to see grass right through the whole area. As someone those of you who heard me speak on my passions about grass in some of our sporting fields, but from my experience in trying to manage grass in heavy usage areas, I can't see it going to work. And if in the consultation process someone can prove me wrong, I would be absolutely delighted. If in consultation with our residents we can find a way that if we don't believe that we can legally enforce particular guidelines about dogs going into parks, sometimes at least provide appropriate signage, prompts, all sorts of things. We need to make at least some effort to address the concerns of those residents who have emailed us telling us that they can't sleep at night because they're being kept awake by dogs. If we don't meet with them and do our best to hear what their concerns are, then I don't believe we're representing our whole community. At the end of this process, this will all come back to council and we'll be able to make firm decisions about what we're going to do. But I think that we're not looking after either our dog owners, our local residents, or the surface of the park if we don't at least go through the consultation process. So I urge you to support the consultation process, and we can make final decisions when the results of those consultations come back to the chamber in a few months' time.
Councillors, those in favour, put that motion to you. Those against? That's carried unanimous. That's carried rather. Anyone want a division? No? Okay, that's carried. Now, councillors, I suggest we, as I foreshadowed before, I'm just going to shift the agenda around. We'll go to item 9.1 in a moment, but just to give the officers a heads up, we'll go then to item 10.2 and then item 13.5. So if you get those queued up for me, that would be great. So, councillors, let's now move to section 8 to 13, which is presentation of reports. Item 9.1 is our first report, and I ask if there's any questions of the officers in relation to the Multicultural Advisory Committee 2021 annual report. There being none, I invite a mover, Councillor Deputy Mayor Baxter, and I ask, thanks for coming everybody, and I ask Councillor Martin the second, thank you. Deputy Mayor Baxter, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard from the Multicultural Advisory Committee on the work that they've achieved over the last year, and it is amazing that these groups of volunteers who join not just the Multicultural Advisory Committee, we have other advisory committees who do great work, but particularly the Multicultural Advisory Committee have been able to achieve so much through advocacy, through connecting people, and through, well, look, we've got a report here that says all the wonderful things that they do. So it's been an absolute honour to represent council on that group. The members are extremely impressive and high-powered people that I genuinely feel all could and should be councillors at the City of Port Phillip, and they have extremely wonderful breadth of experience and knowledge, and fantastic decision-making abilities. The only thing they lack as a volunteer group is resources, and so if we can work more closely with our advisory committees, I think that we can really unlock some of the most amazing sort of outcomes for our community because of the kinds of people that participate in these. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Georgina Tsalides and Ellen Kamun and all the other members of the committee for the wonderful work that they've done. We're currently in the process of recruiting some new members to the committee as well, so that we can have some new blood and hopefully some new ideas and great directions to go from here. So that's all I've got to say.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Baxter, over to you. Do I go back to Councillor Baxter? Oh, not very good tonight. Councillor Martin, over to you.
I'd just like to place on the record my congratulations to the Multicultural Advisory Committee, their chair, and to Councillor Baxter who supports them, and to the council officers who support that particular advisory committee. As a member of two other advisory committees, I know the amount of work that these people do. And you heard my question to Georgina earlier. These groups are looking to work together and look for as much intersectionality as possible. They are some of the main engine rooms of our council, and we are really, really fortunate to have so many wonderful volunteer people who want to support our council through the advisory committee. So if you haven't read their report, anyone out there, make sure you have a read of the report. It's a wonderful document.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Anybody else wish to speak to the item? Deputy Mayor Baxter, you wish to close? No. Okay. Councillors, now put that to your vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we're now moving to item 10.2, which is the Kerferd Road Safety Trial Update. And councillors, I'll hand over to you for some questions, but I took some here before. Could we get a summary of the known accidents at this intersection or around this intersection, please, as referred to at the previous question time? Kylie Bennett. Or is Brian T there?
Through you, Mayor, I think David, who is online, will answer that question for you.
David McNish, I think it is, isn't it? Yep.
Yes.
David, welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I might take that one on notice. We do have the information within the package. In the last period that the trial's been in place, there's been 0 accidents. So a really good outcome for the safety trial, proving that it's, the sort of outcomes of the trial were required. In the previous lead up to that, I'd need to take that on notice and pass that back once talking to the rest of our team.
Okay, if you could, that would be useful. And evidence of safety concerns of rear-end collisions at the intersection. There's now a T-bone intersection, effectively. Any commentary on that?
Through you, Mayor. I believe the petitioner was talking about the next intersection. I'm unaware of any accidents in that location. However, I'd need to check records to confirm, so I'll take that on notice.
Okay, councillors, any questions? Any further questions you'd like to ask? Okay, Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
Just wondering, we probably haven't because it's not in the report, but just thought I'd ask, did we do any kind of traffic generation mapping on where that traffic went? Like, did it create any excessive traffic in any other street, or is it just kind of all, it hasn't had an impact elsewhere that we know of?
Through you, Mayor. We've sort of had no allegorical evidence. We didn't undertake sort of modelling due to sort of the cost of doing that type of modelling, but also that it wouldn't necessarily show the impact. So to date, we haven't had any sort of additional information that there's been any rat runnings associated with that, and no community feedback along with that.
Any further questions? Councillor Consolo.
I think one of the issues that we're addressing is it was 6 months or 12 months and it's 18 months and it just keeps going, and then the things that we're referring here don't have necessarily an end date either, which that's the Trying to See master plan. Do we have any indication when we might hear more, when people can know that this design's come forth and when it could be constructed?
Through you, Mayor. Delp's most recent update for their October update advised that they anticipate the release of the master plan in early 23. So at that point it will go to community. Once the community has provided feedback, that will enable us to sort of Delp rather, to bring that back to council for endorsement, and then we can progress on to sort of working with Delp to fast track the delivery of this item in particular.
Thanks, councillors. Any further questions? Okay, we have the officer's recommendation. Would you like to move that or something else? I'm looking for a mover. Sorry, Councillor Copsey, I missed you there. Councillor Copsey to move, seconder. Councillor Baxter to second. Councillor Copsey, get you to speak to the officer's recommendation that you've moved.
I'm happy to just reserve. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Bond. Sorry, well, clearly I'm not doing a good job in my brain tonight. I'll just take myself out and have a word to myself later on. So I called Councillor Baxter to second, whilst I was looking at the docile tones of Councillor Bond. You happy to second? You happy to second?
Yes, yeah. Sure.
I'll get you to speak to it then, yeah. Deputy Mayor Baxter.
I was just scratching my head, but I think that's fine.
Go ahead.
I can second this. Look, I think this is all common sense stuff for us to proceed with, and that we've taken into account a number of different factors. It seems to me relatively uncontroversial.
Councillor Bond, would you like to speak?
Yes, I will. I had a good conversation with a resident about this very intersection at the community consultation we had in Albert Park on Saturday morning. So I accept there are concerns from a number of residents that the closing of this particular intersection of Kerferd Road has caused inconvenience, and I accept there were probably a lot more people against the closing of this intersection than there were in favour of it. And the conversation I had with the person on the weekend was along the lines of, yeah, I accept those facts, except the people that are telling me that the closing of this intersection is a good idea are the people who actually live on that intersection, and the ones that have had to call the ambulances over the years for all the accidents that have happened at that intersection. And I know that's the case because every time something happened, I got an email or a text from them saying, another one, another one, another one. And normally I would probably not be in favour of closing this, except for the fact that I know there were a lot of accidents at this particular intersection. And I know it greatly impacted the people who live at this intersection and in that street. Every time they heard a crash, they had to run outside. What do we need to do now? I've got to ring the police, ring an ambulance, ring tow trucks. So, a couple of them have been in contact with me this week and said there hasn't been a single accident since we closed this particular thoroughfare. So, to me, the evidence has speaks for itself that yes, this is an inconvenience. Yes, a number of people have to go round the block. Yes, it's taken away a direct path through there, but it has also stopped the accidents, and it's stopped a lot of concerns and a lot of angst for the residents who live in that location, wondering when the next accident was going to be. There's probably a little bit of work to be done there with the trees, because it has been brought up by a number of people, including those that were in favour of closing this intersection, that it can be difficult to see on occasions at that intersection, even if you're a pedestrian or a cyclist or in a car, because some of the growth on some of the trees is blocking view lines. So that's something, I don't know whether that's a council problem or a Vic Roads problem, depending on where those trees are located, but it's certainly something we can address at that intersection and improve the view lines. But I think it's hard to argue that this trial hasn't been a success, given it has stopped the accidents at this intersection. I know more people may not like my decision than those that do like it, but those that do like this decision are the ones that have had to deal with the impacts of the accidents that used to occur at this intersection weekly and monthly in their streets and outside their houses, and some with cars coming through their front fences. So. This is a very obvious or very easy decision for me, even though I know a larger group of people are probably not going to be happy with it. But I think that's why we're here at times as councillors, is to make hard decisions that may not necessarily be the will of the majority, but they're certainly the right decisions. And in this case, this is the right decision to continue with this closure. I probably don't have much faith in the Shrine to Sea and what it will deliver for the area, but I'll leave that up to another level of government who are responsible for that project, and we will work with them and hopefully improve this intersection permanently when they come and tell us what it is that they intend to do with the street, which is not really in our hands, it's in someone else's hands.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor. The definition of accident, as I said when this first came to council, is 1 in 5 years, as per the council officer's information in the recommendation, then we should be closing many, many streets across the municipality. So I didn't support it when it first came to council, based on the impact to residents and based on the fact that there's been one crash in 5 years. And so I don't think that is a factor that justifies, and that's the council's information that they've provided, council officer's information. And I don't support the recommendation to continue with this trial. I question the impact of the Shrine to Sea project on, what that's going to deliver to the road users and the residents and other potential side roads of the surrounding streets. But as Councillor Bond said, that will be discussed or debated when that project produces some draft designs. But in the meantime, as I said, I don't support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Councillor Consolo.
Thank you. It feels this temporary arrangement is unfair for residents. It just keeps going on and on. I don't support reopening it, though. I don't think as it was is the right solution either. Some of those angles and the movements are not what we would do in modern standards. So if risk has been identified, I think that's something we have a responsibility to address. However, given the answer to my question earlier was that we're anticipating early 2023 for the design and community consultation. And no offense to council, but I don't think we would do that faster on our own because we have other projects in the pipeline. My decision, I would be supporting this tonight, that we will go to Shrine of the Sea as the way to address this. And should that fail, I would be happy to bring this back in as an item. Thanks.
Anybody else wish to speak to the item? Okay. I'll speak. I'm going to support this evening. I think we need to come up with a permanent solution there. If I wasn't sitting in this chair and I was down in those chairs, I'd be a bit more scathing in my criticism on the Shrine to Sea project because it's 5 years now. It's 4 years into it. We've got 150 trees, but we still don't have a definition around what that project is. And every year that passes by, the dollar value of that investment goes down and down and down. So, but we won't go through it. But we need a permanent solution there, so everyone can if we close it, we can turn it into some form of open space and potentially activate it in some way, shape or form. If we're not going to close it, make it safer through sight lines, but move forward with it. But I'm happy to kick the can down the road a little bit more according to this, but we do need to come up with a permanent solution to provide everybody some certainty around it. And I thank the officers for the report that they've provided. I now go back to Councillor Copsey to close if you wish. Are you reserved anyway, so I presume you wish to speak?
Thank you. All I'll add is that I'm really pleased to see that we're putting in some interim greening with the temporary tree planters, where we've seen those deployed on St Kilda Road. They're really effective for putting something in there when we don't want to have a permanent solution, but also to slightly beautify this intersection a little bit. So pleased to see that it looks like we're going to continue with this. It's been a really important safety measure, and I'm very pleased that the trial has been successful. Thank you to the officers for the work on monitoring this, and let's hope we can get to a permanent solution soon.
Now put that motion to you. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Okay, let's move on. Now we're moving now to item 13.5, which is the South Melbourne Market Annual Report 21 to 22. Councillors, questions of the officers of the report? There being none, I ask for a mover. Councillor Crawford to move and Councillor Consolo the second. Councillor Crawford, do you wish to speak to the item?
I just think the report just actually highlights yet again the beloved position that the South Melbourne market holds within our community, and that it is done really well. So congrats to the team who operate and to the committee, and thanks to Councillor Consolo and Councillor Pearl for their roles on it. But it is much loved as a community hub as much as it is for the great food and various items that are sold there. And I do look forward to the future of, where we can improve and grow and keep enhancing the market that is, as Councillor Bond likes to call it, the jewel in the municipality.
Hear, hear. Councillor Consolo.
Thank you. It's a beautiful annual report. Lovely pictures in there and photos of what we have to offer down there. Of course, there's a mix of bad and good because there were lockdowns that we had to note all through there and carry through. But there's been lots of wins with award-winning traders and new traders coming. So it's been quite the year. There's even been, I'm really proud of the team doing their activations and events, completing compliance, maintenance, all the things that we need to do even among that difficult time. And council supported a lot of the rental, buffered a lot so that we could retain, and we retained a very high percentage, almost close to 100%, I would say. Was it 98%? Can't remember, but really high, something that we're very proud of, and it's helped for us to bounce back. So I'm wishing the market the best in the 2022-2023 year, and we've already seen the numbers come back to every month on, and so it's looking to be a great year with our regular events coming back like the Muscles Fest. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Consolo. Who else would like to speak to the item? I'll speak very briefly. Thank you to Councillor Consolo for joining me on the South Melbourne Market Committee, and thank you to the committee members. The market is not in a state of flux. It's in a time of change, and the financials in the report detail that. But that now is the time to reposition the market for the current and future resident base that sits in it. So there's going to be a period of change over the next 5 years in particular. And we've reviewed some governance structures at the market, which is important. But this report highlights some of the financial challenges that the market's facing, but also some of the wonderful things that are going on that's made the market such a huge success, particularly in the past 10 or 12 years. And councillors, you should be proud of your stewardship of the market, even if you've only been here a couple of years or been here longer, such as Councillor Bond, who served previously on the committee also. Lots of small decisions have culminated to the market being the success it is today, but that's not to say there's not a large amount of challenges going forward, and some of those are outlined in this wonderful report that we're considering here this evening. Who else would like to speak to the item? No, Councillor Crawford, do you wish to close? I now put that recommendation moved by Councillor Crawford to you. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's now reverse back and go back to 10.1, which is the Palais Theatre and Luna Park Precinct completion of Statutory Road. Councillors, questions of the officers on this report, 10.1. There being none, I look for a mover of the officer's recommendation or something else. Councillor Crawford, thank you, to move the officer's rec. Seconder, Councillor Bond, second. Sorry, pardon me, I missed the guys on the councillors on the screen. I'll be a bit more attentive. Councillor Crawford. No. Councillor Bond. Would any other councillor wish to speak to this item? You wish to close, Councillor Crawford? No, okay. I'll now put that to you. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Let's now move to item 10.3, which is the West St Kilda Traffic Management proposed trial of right-hand turn ban into Cowderoy Street. Questions of the officers? Councillor Sirikoff, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest.
Oh, no problems. Yep, go ahead.
I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest for item 10.3, West St Kilda Traffic Management proposed trial on right-hand turn ban into Cowderoy Street due to living in the area being considered by the report out of considerable caution while I seek independent legal advice.
Oh, okay, so you're actually going to leave?
Yep.
Yep, no troubles at all. Thanks for raising that when you had the opportunity to do so. We appreciate it. So we'll just wait for Councillor Sirikoff to leave.
Mayor, can I ask a quick point of order while we're waiting?
Go ahead.
Just in item number 3, declarations of conflicts of interest, do we need to go back to that?
No, I'll note it in the minutes under this section, but no, we don't. It's a statutory requirement that we disclose that. Christine?
I personally have no problem with
No, it's a statutory requirement that we have that as a standing agenda item, but a conflict of interest can be noted on any part of the report by a councillor at any time, because something might give rise during the meeting to a conflict that hasn't necessarily been disclosed in the papers or in the agenda itself.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
And as Councillor Clark would say, I probably went a bit too long with that answer. So where are we, councillors? Any questions of the officers on 10.3? Go ahead, Councillor Crawford.
It probably is a 101 question. So at this point, have any of the residents been informed about this consultation, or just the people who have been advocating from Cowderoy Street, or is it just gone up in the council papers?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. There has not been any broad notification to the community in the proposed area for consultation, but there has been communication in advance of the council meeting and this item being placed upon the agenda with the West St Kilda Residents Association, and they're aware of it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
So, if this motion is passed and we go out to consultation, given that there will be flow-on impact, if the motion is supported, there will be flow-on impacts to residents of other streets, how wide will the net be spread so we can get as much information from those people who might be indirectly affected because they might live 2 or 3 blocks further back off Canterbury Road?
John Bartels.
Through you, Mayor. The proposal and the report talks about it in 2 parts. One is in terms of the extent of the community engagement through the letterbox drop, as it's referred to. That effectively extends north to McGregor Street and then down as far south as Fitzroy Street, and then effectively bounded by Canterbury Road and the properties that face on either side of that road, as well as Beaconsfield Parade. That's in terms of the engagement, in terms of the net, so to speak. In terms of the proposed evaluation, there is intended to be data collected along those streets effectively in that same area, and they pick up effectively on some of those alternative routes that may see some traffic redistributed upon them if this turn ban on Cowderoy Street was to proceed. So in that context, it's McGregor, Langridge and Fraser Street in addition to Cowderoy Street itself.
Thanks, John. Any further questions? Check the phone. No, all good. All right. I'm looking for a move of the officer's recommendation or something else. Councillor Bond's indicated to move. You're moving the officer's recommendation, Councillor Bond, and Councillor Martin the second. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Bond.
If we were making a decision right now to introduce a right-hand turn ban into Cowderoy Street, I probably wouldn't support it, but as we're only making a decision on consultation, I'm interested to hear what the community has to say here, and then we'll come back and make an informed decision with the community input to help us make that decision. I know this has been a long, ongoing issue in this particular area, but the problem we have with every solution that's been proposed over the last 8 or 10 years is that it doesn't actually stop the traffic, it just moves the traffic into someone else's street within that immediate area. So we're not actually addressing the problem, we're just shifting it from one street to the next. And I fear that if we introduced a right-hand turn ban here between 4:30 and 6:30, people would just go to the next intersection up and they would make their right-hand turn there, and they would still do their rat running through that particular area and still want to get out on Cowderoy Street onto Beaconsfield Parade, because that's where the traffic lights are and that's where the dedicated left-hand turn lane is, with those traffic lights on the Beaconsfield Parade. So I don't think this ban would fix the problem, but I'm happy to hear from the community and for them to give us some feedback on this and what their thoughts are before we make a decision as a council on whether or not to introduce this right-hand turn ban.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Peter Martin, do you wish to speak?
A very brief confession. For many years I used to drive home up Canterbury Road, and whenever the traffic was heavy I always used to turn right, and I always used to do it at Cowderoy Street. Not recently, but hand on heart, I was one of the people who caused the issues. When I first joined the council, many residents would contact all of us, including myself, with their complaints about Cowderoy Street. So I think we need to look at ways of alleviating their complaints and making it perhaps less incentive for people to do what I've done many times, which is to duck down Cowderoy Street, down to the beach and then around the beach home. However, I accept what Councillor Bond is saying as well. There may well be impacts on other streets and we're not sure what they will be. Happy to hear what the residents say. And then if we do accept after the consultation process that we're going to do it, we need to look very carefully at any traffic flows during the trial, because I'm not convinced this is the solution, but given the angst that I've seen in the community over recent years, I think that we at least need to go through the process of doing our best to investigate their concerns, try and alleviate it. I'm not 100% sure we'll be successful, but we need to make the effort to investigate.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
I'm sitting on the fence a lot tonight. I'll decide my vote when we get there. I do note that the solution is not banning a right-hand turn, because it just moves traffic. We actually want to reduce traffic, and the solution the modelling has shown us for years, as we densify, it will get more gridlocked and more cars on the road. So we actually need to provide alternatives for those who can walk, cycle, take public transport, because this problem, as we see, is only increasing, and unless we provide those alternatives. So part of me, I don't want to do it. I think it just moves the problem. I'm kind of interested, a bit like Councillor Bond, in hearing from the community and put it to bed, so then we can say we've done it, we've heard from the community, they don't want it to move. Otherwise, I'm actually very surprised to not have any residents from St Kilda, residents who have been advocating for this for years and have had no contact from them. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I think the solution comes in alternative transport and helping people get into alternate ways. And I do not think that this will solve anything, but let's see which way I go.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor. As one of those people who regularly use the Westgate Bridge and come down Canterbury Road, Google Maps directs you to Cowderoy Street, so that's probably exasperating the issue for the residents there. Not sure how one undoes Google Maps recommendations, so that's probably in the too hard basket. I am sympathetic to the residents who live on that street and the impact to them. However, I won't be supporting this motion as I think many of the councillors have already said they don't believe this is the solution, and it is a potential solution to reducing the impact on Cowderoy Street, but that's only going to create problems in Fraser Street, Language Street, maybe even Deakin Street. So in discussions, I'm yet to hear a solution from council officers or anyone else as to what we do when that traffic disperses down Fraser Street or Language Street, as it will do. And so then we'll just be dealing with a petition from those residents who live in those streets. So unfortunately, dispersing it to other streets doesn't solve the problem in that community area, and I don't think this recommendation is going to help at all for that community. So that's why I won't be supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Councillor Copsey.
Thank you. Happy to support this tonight. This is truly a wicked problem, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the St Kilda West Residents Association for tireless advocacy around rat running, but it's a really complex and difficult one to solve. I think Councillor Crawford hit the nail on the head. This area in particular, and our city more generally, actually experiences a lot of through traffic that isn't even beginning or ending in the city of Port Phillip. So for those reasons, this is a perfect example of why it really is important to support everything we can to encourage mode shift where that's desired and wanted and possible for people to take something other than a private vehicle. So a great example of why walk, ride and public transport infrastructure is really crucial. And that includes commuting along some of our great foreshore paths as well, which is a good alternative, I can say from personal experience, to sitting in traffic. This really is one of those difficult problems, and I've got to say I share some of the reservations around whether this will be effective, but I'm happy to support it tonight because I remember having a meeting very early on after initially being elected to council in 2016 with St Kilda West Residents Association members advocating on this very issue, and so I think we are at a point where I favour action. Let's see if we can learn by doing and test this out, and it may be part of the solution here, but I agree with what Councillor Crawford said overall about this being a great illustration of why we need to encourage active, sustainable transport as well.
Thank you, Councillor Copsey. Who else would like to speak to the item? Councillor Bond, do you wish to close? Now put those motion to you, councillors. Those in favour? And those against? Motion carried. And I'll just ask officers to ask Councillor Sirikoff to return to the chamber, please. That motion's carried. Councillors, just before I keep going. Any objections to moving 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, 13.4 on block? I'll come back to you. So 13.1 to 13.4. Okay, councillors, let's now move to 10.4, which is the Victorian Government Public Housing Projects. Councillors, questions of the officers in relation to this item, please. Councillor Martin.
The officer's recommendations look really good, but can Mr Spivak or one of our other officers explain to me what is the legal weight of this? Council's making a strong statement of what it believes should happen, but how much influence do we have on the state government in getting our points of view across? Well, sorry, potentially.
Thank you. Brian T. Is that where I'm going? Brian, can you help us with that question, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The document, the principles as such are probably have a number of roles, but generally in answer to the question, they are an advocacy tool. They are a tool that will help inform council officers as to how to engage with the state government when and if the state government provides an opportunity for council officers to, and indeed council to have an input. And that can occur in one of a number of ways. It can occur prior to public engagement. It can occur, or indeed it can occur as part of the public engagement process. In some, so that's principally the advocacy tool that we're creating here. In some of the engagement areas where council does have a direct interest, including, for example, at Emerald Hill around the Skinner's Adventure Playground, and indeed the use of parking and council roads, there is a greater and a direct involvement for council. But in an overall sense, the planning scheme that is in place provides the community, including councils, with limited formal engagement rights.
Thanks, Brian T. Any further questions, councillors? Great. I'm looking for a mover of the officer's recommendation or something else. I've got Councillor Martin to move and Councillor Crawford to second. Councillor Martin.
I thank the council officers for a very, very comprehensive set of recommendations here. And I hope that we'll be very strong in our advocacy to the state government. I know our residents certainly are looking for us to take the lead in any sort of community consultation, and that we'll do our best to represent the views of our councillors, our council officers and our residents. But however, we probably need to make it very, very clear to our community that that's exactly what we're doing. As Mr T has just explained, we'll be acting as a very, very strong advocate. We're not the decision maker, and we need to make sure our community are aware of that.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Crawford. No? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to the item? I'll speak whilst you're thinking about it, councillors. It's very important that the City of Port Phillip is actively involved in these projects and advocating for our community, both those that live in these places and those that live around it and those that will live there in the future. And it's something we, as a council group, has impressed onto the relevant governmental authority, and we've asked officers to do the same thing to make sure there is genuine, real consultation on the current and future community, and council should play a key role in that. These principles allow us to allow our officers, rather, to navigate those conversations without having to constantly come back to us asking for specific decisions. But the core competency of these projects and the success of them will be the integration of them with the adjacent community, and I'm talking about from a planning point of view, not necessarily a people point of view, albeit it's both. And council plays a crucial role in that, and the state government has a huge amount to gain by including our community and us in the process, and that's what this is all about. So very happy to support this motion here this evening. Councillors, who else would like to speak to the item? There you go. Councillor Martin, do you wish to close? I now put those in favour. That's carried unanimously. No worries. Councillors online, I've just proposed to councillors in the chamber that we move items 13.1, 13.2, 13.3 and 13.4 on block. So it's councillor expenses, discontinuance of lane, instrument of delegation and appointment of officers. Councillor Clark or Councillor Copsey, do you wish to speak to those items, or do you have an objection if we do that? Councillor Copsey, thank you. Councillor Clark, no objection?
No, thank you.
No worries. So under the meeting procedures, I propose we move item 13.1 through item 13.4 inclusive en bloc. I move that. Can I get Councillor Bond to second? It's a procedural motion, so we wouldn't usually speak to it. If you do wish to speak, let me know. I can give you leave. No? Okay, all those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Councillors, let's now move to item 13.6, which is the presentation of the City of Port Phillip annual report. Questions of the officers, councillors? You have an officer's recommendation in front of you, and Councillor Martin, just highlight that you've printed out and read it, which I'm very pleased with. You've just breached our sustainability policy, but that's fine. There's a lot of paper there. There are a few errors, but it's a very long book, Councillor Sirikoff, so I'm not surprised there's a couple of errors there, but if there's anything material, please feel free to ask. So no questions of the officers. Councillors, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to the officer's recommendation. I've got Councillor Martin and Councillor Crawford. Councillor Martin.
I'm only about a third of the way through. I'm reading all the key points. There is so much information there, but it is a brilliant document. I apologise that in my old age it's easier for me to use paper. Very comprehensive. Thank you to all the ELT and all the council officers involved in presenting this excellent document. I hope all the members of our community at least get to read a resume or a summary of it, because there's lots and lots of wonderful information in there.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Crawford doesn't wish to speak. Who else would like to speak to this item? Okay, I'll now put that motion to you, councillors. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's now move to item 14, which is notice as a motion, of which there's none that have been added to the agenda this evening. I now invite you under section, or item 15 rather, to provide reports of councillor delegates. Councillors? Councillor Martin.
We've just finished Seniors Week. It has been absolutely wonderful. We've had a number of functions here in the City of Port Phillip. I might throw to Councillor Copsey to talk about the OPAC Literacy Awards. But yeah, can I put on record my congratulations to the organising committee, which consisted of members of OPAC and a number of our council officers. The functions I attended were brilliant. One of them was washed out, unfortunately, but I know that many older members of our community gained so much benefit out of these activities, and I look for things to be even bigger and better in Seniors Week next year.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Anybody else? Councillor Copsey, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll tail off from that one and say it was wonderful to mark Seniors Week. We had the Port Phillip Writes Seniors Festival Writing Awards at the weekend, and heard excerpts from the amazing creativity that was unleashed through that competition. We had nearly 30 entrants who all produced extraordinary work, and I think it was just really excellent for council to provide an opportunity for that talent and creativity to be showcased. There was a compilation of the work submitted called Port Phillip Writes Created, which will be available in our libraries should you wish to have a look at a copy. And I also wanted to provide a brief update from the LGBT Advisory Committee. Council's LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee members came to speak recently at a briefing to councillors and have shared some of the personal reasons and life experience that informs the enormous contribution that's being made by those committee members over the last months to the development of council's inaugural LGBTIQA+ action plan, which is in draft form. I just wanted to really acknowledge the contribution of those committee members. It was a really excellent briefing and brought to life, I think, the real reasons that we undertake this sort of work. So I'm looking forward to seeing that continue over coming months.
Thank you for that, Councillor Copsey. Deputy Mayor Baxter, go ahead.
Just a quick feedback in my role as delegate to the Municipal Association of Victoria. So the MAV recently have adopted new rules basically about how they're structured and how delegates vote and are represented. And that has obviously been the result of a very long consultation process with all 79 Victorian councils. They're now looking at regional representation and how the groups of councils, being their 5 metropolitan regions and 5 rural and regional, regions. Regional regions, yeah. How that new structure is going to work out, and so I will be talking to councillors in the coming days about what sort of feedback we would want to give from Port Phillip as to basically how we see ourselves and what groupings of councils we think would be most appropriate for Port Phillip to have the most impact in terms of MAV's advocacy and influence on particularly the state government, but also the federal.
Thanks for the update, Deputy Mayor Baxter. Last call, Councillor Sirikoff, go ahead.
I'd also like to thank the organisers of the launch to the Seniors Week, which happened, I think it was Friday a week ago, to David Sharples, who organised the music from the 60s, 70s and 80s, and the choir of men who sang at that event. It was a really delight to see people up and about engaging, and we even had people coming over from Brunswick and from Caulfield. And to also congratulate Anna, who was we awarded a pair of red stiletto shoes to for best dancer on the floor. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Great, thank you, councillors. That concludes item 15. Let's now move to item 16. Do you have any items of urgent business you'd like to raise tonight? There being none, let's now move to item 17. Councillors, we have 2 confidential reports listed on the agenda. I now call upon a councillor, which I'll do, to move that the meeting be closed to the members of the public to deal with the following matters pursuant of section 66, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 2020. They are reports item 17.1, property development matter, and item 17.2, which is waste and recycling collection services. So I move that, and Councillor Martin seconds. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously, and we'll wait for the doors to be shut off.